is Wednesday, February the 3rd. I am your host, KC Phoenix, and this is my daily thought. Okay, today has been moving pretty quickly for the most part. It's already Wednesday, and I'm sure it'll be Friday before we know it. My right cheek is hurting right now, so I might be wiggling around in this chair a lot because I did my exercise today, a part of my exercise, which is stairs. Well, stepping, where I step on this this weight bench or whatever, and I do the steps, and I do a lot of them. And yeah, my right cheek has been hurting since I finished. So anyways, let me go ahead and get into the daily thought on who is qualified to give advice. You know, I thought about that a few times before, and I've heard people say, well, if you want advice on success, get it from a person who is successful. Or if you want advice on a good marriage or on how to have a good marriage, get advice from someone who's been married for a long time. If you want advice on how to study, get advice from someone who is an honor roll or a dean's list student. However, as I've thought about that over the years, one thing that I've learned is that the universe sends information at us constantly. And that's where this thing called discernment comes in. Discernment, being able to separate what's good and what's bad. And sometimes the vessel that the universe uses may be perfectly imperfect, where the universe is looking to give you advice on something. If you're seeking advice, then the universe, like, oh, let's say you want to be a billionaire. Okay, some people might say, well, go find a billionaire and talk to a billionaire, or read, a book that a billionaire has written and follow what they say. However, if there is some type of idea or some type of philosophy that needs to be unlocked within you or taught to you, it may be a possibility that you can't find it through that particular path. You may find that great idea from someone that you just randomly chatted up with at a restaurant, back when restaurants were, more social and things like that. Obviously, that's not the case right now. But you'd be surprised how things happen, is what I'm saying. And I've learned things from people of all walks of life. Every walk of life that you can think of, I more than likely dealt with them in one form or another. And some of the things I learned, they may not be considered quote unquote successful or experts in what they taught me. The universe may not always bring to you an expert in what you need to learn at a certain moment in life. And when you seek out knowledge, when you seek out information, don't so easily discard or dismiss someone that may not be considered an expert in your eyes. Now, people give unsolicited advice all the time. That's sort of like what I do on the show. I give unsolicited advice, and I always tell people I'm not licensed in anything. I'm not a licensed medical practitioner or a psychologist or psychiatrist, even though I feel like that sometimes because everybody tells me all their issues, which is fine. It comes with the territory. My particular demeanor for those who are close to me, I'm open to listening to people's problems most of the time, not all the time, because you have to have boundaries, which I put up a lot more boundaries lately. But when I listen to people's problems or when they ask me for advice, I'm not licensed. I'm not what one may consider an expert. Do I have a lot of life experience? Absolutely. I've dealt with a lot of stuff in life. I remember one of my intuitive consultants that I dealt with many, many years ago when she first started working with me. And I knew she was the real deal. And I actually met her. Remember yesterday when I was telling you guys that I started my own travel agency because my former supervisor at Royal Caribbean has said, hey, you need to start a travel agency if you're leaving Royal Caribbean, just start your own travel agency. Well, one of the customers of Royal Caribbean, her and I clicked very well. And we were talking, I was telling her I would start my own travel agency. She's like, oh, I want to work with you. And I was like, oh, okay. That's cool. So we did that, and we did really well. And what she had told me one day is she said, you have to talk to this lady named Vivian. Vivian's really good. And she's like, she's an intuitive consultant, and she's just really, really good. And I'm like, I'm not necessarily into that. And my friend was like, no, trust me, she's good. And when she said that, I was like, okay, because my particular friend and business partner at the time, she was good people. She's solid. So, and it wasn't that much. It was only $50 for the consultation. So I was like, worst case scenario was just $50. And the thing was with Vivian does the readings and then you send her the $50. It's not like you send her the $50 at that time and then she does the reading. No, she does the reading and then you send her a money order or a check in the mail to her address. Well, Vivian and I were talking, and I knew Vivian was the real deal when Vivian told me some things about me that not even my mother would know about me. Not even my mother would know. And I'm like, wow. And it wasn't she was asking me, because you know how you deal with some people where they're asking questions and question after question after question after question, trying to probe and find out and this and that. No, Vivian was making statements. She was like, why are you so afraid of dying young? Which it was in the form of a question, but it was a statement. She's like, why are you so afraid of dying young? And I'm like, wait, what? How would she know that? And again, this was back a long time ago. And I was like, no, it's always been a thing. Because back at that time, I was afraid that I would die in my mid to late 20s is what I was afraid of. And she's like, you don't need to be afraid of that. She said, actually, you're going to live a pretty long time, is what she told me. Then she said something else during the reading that I won't tell you. I'll save that information for later. But she said something else during the reading. And she's like, because it was like, why did you do this? And again, it wasn't necessarily accusatory, but it was like, she's telling me, it's in the form of a question, but it's very, she knows that this was the situation. And I explained to her, and she's like, no, don't do that. And then she explained why. And again, I'll explain that particular part one day. I'll let you guys know what it is. I'll let you guys know, I promise. And then she said to me, and mind you, this was 20 years ago. Sheesh. Yeah, about 20 years ago, give or take. She said to me, you've been through a lot. She said, I can tell. And mind you, the only thing she knew about me was my first name, my last name, and my date of birth. That's all she had. And this wasn't a thing where, you know, she was going online and pulling information, because again, the things that she brought up were things that you wouldn't find online. And she then said to me, she said, you've already lived 2 to 3 lifetimes in your one lifetime. This was back in my 20s. Back in my early 20s. So she said, you've already lived 2 to 3 lifetimes in your one lifetime. You've been through a lot. And I was like, yeah, it kind of feels like that sometimes. And I bring that up to say, you can never gauge the information that someone has. You don't know what someone has been through. And just because they don't meet the criteria for what someone underlines as success, or what someone underlines as what is the creme de la creme for the knowledge you are seeking, that doesn't mean they don't have information to help you on your journey. You can't go into something with the mindset where, okay, I want to be a billionaire, so I'm just only going to listen to stuff from people who are billionaires. I'm only going to read books by billionaires, which you can have that attitude, that's fine. However, there are people throughout life who are still on their way to doing things. So what happens for everything before? Because in order to get to something, you have to go through something. Comfort and growth are not friends. So for the billionaires, or for what someone says successful is, all these people on Forbes or whatever, did nothing count before they made it on there? All of their battles, them being battle tested, all of those battles beforehand, did they not count? Would it have been a thing of, if you met them right before they became big, and they offered some advice right before they became big, whether it's a year before or 2 years before, whatever. You met them before they became big, and they gave advice before they became big. Is all of that advice void? Is all of the advice up until the point that they became big void? And only the advice they offer now that they've reached a success? Where someone who has been married, I'll give you an example. One of my relatives, she was married once, but then it didn't work out. She got divorced. Somebody might say, oh, well, why would you talk to that person? But then she got married again, and she stayed married to that husband until he died. She had a successful marriage. And it was obviously her longest marriage, which was, how long was that? I'm trying to think. I'm doing some math in my head here. Yeah, I'd probably say at least 25 to 30 years they were married, I think. 25 to 30 years. Definitely no less than 20 years for sure. But if you had spoke to her before she went into her second marriage and you were looking for advice on, okay, how do you make a marriage last? And then as soon as you find out, oh, well, she's divorced, I shouldn't take advice from her. Maybe she can tell you what went wrong on why she got divorced and say, these are some of the things, these might be some of the red flags to look for. But is any advice that she has ever given on marriage void until she's reached the 20-year peak with her husband? All of the advice that she gave before the long lasting and loving marriage with kids, is all of that advice void until she reaches that peak? And now that her husband's gone, it's like, oh, okay, well, she had the long-lasting marriage. She stayed married to her husband until he died, so on and so forth. Yeah, she has a lot of knowledge, da-da-da-da. Yeah, I can listen to her now. What about all the battles that she had been through before? Did those battles not count for anything? So when I'm talking about who's qualified to give advice, I'm talking about everyone that you come across. There's usually something you can learn from them, is what I'm saying. So I want, and for those who are watching, I'm doing two things at once. For those who are listening, it doesn't even matter because you're listening. But again, that discernment thing, you have to know when the universe is attempting to send you help, is what you have to know. And I believe that if you can master discernment, you can get advice from many, many places, is what I believe. And it doesn't have to be a thing of, oh, well, they have to be successful in this particular thing. Because again, someone may still be going through their battles on their journey to what you or what the world considers success. And as I said before, what is considered success? If you're looking to be an entrepreneur, what's considered a successful entrepreneur? Is it one that makes $100,000 a year? Is it one that makes $10 million a year? Is it one that has 10 million followers on social media? Is it one that has name recognition around the world? Is it one that has just financial freedom where they can do what they want? What's considered success? So that's why I say discernment comes in. And there isn't a qualification for giving advice. The only thing you can do is tell your truth. And that's what I do on the show. All I do is tell my truth. I don't do anything else. Because I don't have the luxury to. I don't have the luxury to tell anything outside of the truth. So yeah, the main point of this daily thought is to say, quit looking in my head is doing a number on me, so just bear with me. quit looking for qualifications. Quit looking for that. I mean, that's great. And obviously, if you're seeking out information in something, and let's say you want to be a doctor, obviously you would want to seek out some people who work in the medical field as doctors. But don't discard nurses. Nurses work in the medical field too. And also nurses interact with doctors a lot. So don't say, well, I want to be a doctor, so I'm only going to talk to doctors. What about nurses? Nurses have to do a lot too. So it's one of those things where, like I said, discernment. You have to know. And even for someone who isn't in the medical field, maybe they've dealt with the medical system for most of their life. And they've had to deal with it. Maybe they have some type of condition where they've had to deal with a lot of doctors. So they may not be in the medical field, but they've dealt with 20 or 30 doctors over their lifetime. And they have an idea of how doctors operate and what doctors do and what doctors ask. And, what an internal medicine doctor would be versus another type of doctor, a general practice doctor, and so on and so forth. Don't be so quick to discount advice, because everyone can usually offer a little bit of something. Can everyone offer a little bit of something on everything? Obviously not. But there's always a little bit of something you can learn from people. You really, really can. So, I think you kind of get my point. So that is my daily thought when it comes to who's qualified to give advice. My answer is everyone's qualified to give advice. If you live life, you're qualified to give advice on what you feel you're qualified to give advice on. Now, for the people who receive advice, that's where you have to have discernment to determine if the advice is worth taking or not, because you don't have to take all the advice that's given to you. Just like I make suggestions, I offer advice on this podcast, even whether I'm doing my daily thought or whether I'm doing tarot card readings and stuff. It's up to you, because you're the individual who makes the choice. We all have free will. You can make the choice. You can also do research, because we live in the age of the internet. The internet is still a baby right now. Things are just growing. It's just starting. You can always take the advice that someone gives you, run it across some other stuff on the internet, and see if it adds up. If it adds up, great. If it doesn't, okay. Throw the advice away. That's usually what I do. If someone gives me advice, sometimes I go straight to the internet if I feel I need more details, or if I feel it's not quite setting right with my spirit. I'll go to the internet and then just cross-check it and do that. But that's just me. But the point is, everyone's qualified to give advice. If you're living life, you're going through something. You're on your way to somewhere. And you don't have to wait until you get there to whatever that thing is to be qualified to give advice. It's just whatever you've been through thus far, that's what you're qualified to talk about. So, yeah, that's all. Anyways, KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. Also, this podcast is on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, Pandora, iHeartRadio, and other podcasting platforms. Thank you to the new people who have come on and started listening to the podcast, and those who are binge watching or binge listening, I should say, the podcast. KIRWKC on social media platforms, Facebook.com. If you're watching this on YouTube or Daily Motion, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. That will let you know when I upload new videos. Again, for this weekend, I'm doing a wacky news weekend. So I'm going to find me some crazy news articles, and I'm going to read those crazy news articles and more than likely give my opinion on those. Next weekend, keeping my fingers crossed, I will do the quick energy reading check-in for all the signs. My goal is to be 10 minutes or less, no, 15 at the most, but 10 minutes is what I'm going for because it's going to be a quick energy reading check-in. And then the weekend after that will be the tarot card energy reading for March is what that will be. And then more than likely following that, I will do maybe a movie review or something related to sports, I'm thinking. And of course, I will continue as long as I'm able, as long as the universe gives me another day. Here I am. As long as I'm able throughout the week, I will continue to do my daily thoughts, which I feel like talking about something related to maybe food and doing that. So I might go that route. Because again, there's only but so much self-help and, positive thinking and rah, 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 and all that other stuff you can talk about. But anyways, thank you again for your support. Sincerely appreciate it. Until next time, be blessed.